Good morning. Are you doing well? Yes. How do you know? I want you to turn open your Bibles to the Book of Habakkuk. If you don't know where that is, it's between Nahum and Zephaniah. That should help you. If you need a little more information, go to Matthew. Go back to the last book of the Old Testament, the Italian prophet Malachi, and go back 4 books and you will find Habakkuk. You didn't know there was an Italian prophet. Some of you just looked so dumbfounded. An Italian prophet. Well, I think the Hebrews pronounce it Malachi, but phonetically, I believe it can be Malachi. And glad to have you with us today. I'm glad to see my sister here. I think I told you earlier I had 4 brothers and 5 sisters. I was number 8 of 10. She was number 7. Everyone knows 7's lucky. And she was number 7. She's lucky because she had number 8 for a brother. Some former church members, when I pastored in Rootstown, are here. And good to see Carl and his 2 boys here. Good to have the McCroys. Also, my son and his wife are here. You just look around the room and find somebody else without facial hair that's as good looking as I am, and you'll find them. I think my grandchildren may be hiding in the basement. Yes? We may hear from them, but that's okay. They're Scotch-Irish boys that just have to get it out. Those of you that were in Sunday school, those would be 3 of the 12 that are wonderful reasons for me not to go to Romania if I was looking for a reason not to go and do what God wanted me to do. But you can't do that. You do what God wants you to do, and He takes care of everything else. So as you have found your place in Habakkuk, just leave it open there. We are not going to read specifically the whole book, but we're going to deal with all 3 chapters. And we're going to talk about it as we proceed on through. And do you truly understand that the world is winding down? You know, I don't like to consider myself an old man, but I'm old enough to know that this is not the same country I grew up in. A lot of things have changed, and none of them for the better. They really haven't. And I can remember my dad teaching me, you're a young man, you walk into the building, you take your hat off. You do not leave it on your head. When the national anthem is sung, you stand. Put your hand over your heart and don't utter a word till it's done. I remember forgetting that once, but only once. I had a stiff neck for a couple of days because he hit me in the back of the head and flung it forward so fast. But we live in a crazy world. I mean, things change so fast. I mean, just think about the changes that have been made in just the last 2 months. So how do you stay together while the world's falling apart? How do you do that? It's impossible to do it in and of yourself. It's impossible to do it as a church without the guidance of God. This is a little statement I used to make and used to be in my bulletin all the time. It is the Word of God, illuminated by the Spirit of God, that leads us to the will of God. So if you're really struggling with what to do, how to do it, I have to ask you one question. When's the last time you read His Word? And not just read, apply, live by it. It's not enough to just say, I read my Bible. It's, I've lived my Bible. That's the important part. How many of you know Jesus is coming again? Are you glad? I hope so. If you're not glad, you better get it ready real quick. But this world is winding down. Not the earth. The earth is winding down. God tells us about that too, but that's another subject for another day. But this world system is fast eroding and taking God out of every aspect of it as fast and as quickly as they can. And how many of you know you're going up in the rapture? You know what? 2 years ago, I weighed 328 pounds. And I really fought to get it off. And then one day as I was studying, I thought to myself, why did you bother? There is no weight limit in the rapture. No, I honestly did it because I knew I needed to be healthier and stronger to extend my ministry opportunities. And so I tried to get in shape for Romania. And there's a fellow over there named Nelu Frese. He's 63 years old. He still plays soccer 3 times a week. And he's playing with 20-year-old boys. And he outruns them all the time. The last time I saw him playing soccer, I said, Nello, come se goalie. He said, they're making me play goalie because they're tired of me outrunning them down the field. So they made him play goalie. And I thought, well, if he can do it, I got to get in shape. So we're working on it. But folks, things are changing. Many of us who live in America have this idea that we're God's darlings. And because we're God's darlings, there's certain things we don't have to worry about. Let's be honest. I've had that attitude a little bit too. You know, we are not God's chosen nation. Okay? Some of us act like we are, but we are not. We are God's chosen people because before the foundations of the world were ever laid, He called us. He chose us to be His child. But we're not His darlings. We are not His chosen nation. And as a matter of fact, the Bible teaches that if you study it out and you come to eschatology and the study of last things, I honestly can't find much, if anything, said about the good old USA. So what we see transpiring should not shock us too much, but it should shake us up. It should stir us to start spreading the gospel. It should stir us to be faithful to the time in which He has called us to live. And we need to understand this. We've never really been exempt from things. How many people are killed daily in the U.S.? How many people end up with some type of disease or cancer and die? So we need to understand that we've always had our tribulation, so to speak, not the great tribulation. God's people won't see the great tribulation, but we will see tribulation. As a matter of fact, as you study Scripture, and nations and peoples and regions of the world face tribulation, it's kind of just a foreshadowing of what will come someday for the whole world. And unfortunately, I think we're about to be shaken far more than any of us, 1, realize, 2, want to be, and 3, look forward to. We're just not going to have it. How many of you, but when you're going through these times, how many of you sit there and go, God, what's going on? Are you so insensitive to us? You don't care? Do you not hear? I've talked to people who say, has God given up on us? No, never will. But a lot of us have given up on God. We question his motives. We question his direction. And we just don't understand what's going on. Now, I'd like to share with you that there's 3 basic divisions in the book of Habakkuk. In chapter 1, we have what I'm going to call this morning the perplexing problem. And as a matter of fact, let's discuss it a little bit. Let's look at chapter 1. O Lord, how long shall I call for help and you not hear? Or cry of violence and you will not save? Why do you make me see iniquity, and why do you idly look at wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise. So the law is paralyzed, and the justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous, so justice goes forth perverted. Look among the nations and see. This is the Lord's answer to his prayer. Wonder and be astounded, for I am doing a work in your days that you would not believe if I told you. For behold, I am raising up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, who march through the breadth of the earth. They seize dwellings not their own. They are dreaded and fearsome. Their justice and dignity go forth from themselves. Their horses are swifter than leopards, more fierce than the evening wolves. Their horsemen press proudly on. Their horsemen come from afar. They fly like an eagle, swift to devour. They all come for violence, all their faces forward. They gather captives like sand. At the kings they scoff, and at the rulers they laugh. They laugh at every fortress, for they pile up earth and take it. They sweep by like the wind and go on. Guilty men whose own might is their God. And then he goes on and talks a little bit more. As I read that, did you notice anything? Habakkuk cries out to God and said, what's going on? And then the word cry is used again. And it's a whole different word. And it means he yelled, help! I mean, that's a real cry. He's emphasizing the need that the people of Israel have because of the wickedness amongst the nation. And then he says, well, do you not think I know what's going on? Let me ask you a question. Do you not think God knows what's going on in our world today? Do you not think he knows about COVID-19? Do you not think he's actually in ultimate control of its effects? We need to open up a reality of where we are and what God's doing. How many of you get tired of, I don't even listen to the news. Matter of fact, was it last week? We had cable taken out of our house. You know, I got to admit, I used to like to watch Fox. But in December, I noticed something even in Fox. You want to talk about flip-flopping? Like nobody's business. It's an application of what Habakkuk's talking about here going on in our nation today. Nobody's going to stand for the truth. There are a couple that still do, but you wonder how long they're going to be there, because right now, from everything that I can read, study, and know, they're trying to shut down any conservative voice at all. And we're in the same place that Habakkuk was that day. And we pray, God, Do you not hear us? Do you not see? Do you not understand? Why? 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 I wish I could say it like a fellow I heard preach down in North Carolina a few years back. He was about as southern as you could be, and I had a Romanian with me, and we went to hear him. We were doing some ministry at his church, and the fellow said, why? My Romanian buddy looked over at me and said, why is he crying? But I feel like that because I'm constantly asking God why. You know, I learned something very early on. How many of you know where Berea Baptist Church is in Berea, Ohio? That's where my wife and I were saved. That's where I was baptized. That's where we were married. I don't plan on going back there to be buried, though. But I learned something very interesting early on. Brother Lee Adams, I don't know if any of you know who he is. He used to be with Baptist Mid-Missions. He said, Rick, one thing you need to learn right off the bat, God is not necessarily going to tell you what you want to know, but he will always tell you what you need to know. That answer keeps coming back to me in these days we live in, because it just doesn't, the facts are there. Anybody with an ounce of common sense can see the truth of what's going on. But we're inundated with false statements and innuendo and rumor and things that you know how they happen. They twist it and swing it around and make it something totally different. And it's no different than Habakkuk. Matter of fact, didn't Solomon write in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun? It might have a little different shading, but it's not new. And we're going through this, but I really do believe, unless God intervenes, and he can intervene at any moment's notice, that we are seeing the final days of the good old USA. I'm not trying to be draconian, little Romanian terminology, in my statements, you know, trying to be negative. I'm just being honest. You know, I look at people that I thought were strong, conservative voices, and with this new administration, it's like, where in the world did you come from? What are you doing? It's perversion. It's perversion. Paul wrote about it, did he not? When he said, what's right will be called wrong, and what's wrong will be called right. And in the last days, people are going to be lovers of self more than lovers of God. And folks, we have a perplexing problem, just like Habakkuk did. We're in bad shape. And most people aren't even willing to look at the problem. They're wanting to blame somebody else. My dad told me this growing up. He said, be careful when you point a finger at somebody, because there's three pointing back at you. That's a great statement. So you're probably 3 times the problem than the person you're pointing at. But is the church looking at themselves in relationship to the problem? I don't want you to raise your hand, but I really want you to evaluate. Do you pray daily for your leadership? Local, county, state, national? Are you aware of the smear campaign that's going on right now for one of the best conservative voices we have in Congress? And he's from your state, Jim Jordan. Are you praying for him? I mean, we get so self-absorbed that we forget our purpose and we don't practice that which we should be practicing. You know, there's this old adage, you can't see the forest for the trees. And we're sitting right here and we're looking and we're so perplexed. And how about stepping back so you can see the big picture? God's working. Do you know nations that were so closed to the gospel message are so open? It is unbelievable. India, for years, was closed to the gospel message. India is exploding with the gospel. Do you know why I believe that the gypsies are so open to the good news of the Lord Jesus Christ at this time? They're originally from India. God's doing a work. Do you remember Paul wanting to go east and God said, no, go west? It wasn't time for the east. Now it's time for the east. And instead of complaining about what's going on in the west, we in the west ought to be praying for the folks in the east. You know? Sometimes we're so concerned about Russia or China or North Korea or somebody else, taking advantage or destroying America, when in reality we ought to be more concerned about God's judgment on America because of our failure to be faithful to the principles and precepts of His Word. God's still on the throne. God is still able. He is still in control when you least think He is. I used to sing a lot when I was younger. As a matter of fact, I was part of a gospel group at Sean's home church, and we called ourselves the Uncalled For. And we told people you could spell for any way you wanted to, F-O-U-R or F-O-R, but we were uncalled for. But Steve Green has a song, God and God Alone, one of my favorite songs. And a line in that song says this: all the best or worst of man won't change the Master's plan. It's God's and God's alone. So there's really only two ways to look at this perplexing problem that we have, just like Habakkuk did in his day. Either God is moving to create revival for one more strong effort to forward the gospel, or He wants us to remain as strong as we possibly can because we're going down and we need to call out to all those who still need to hear. Either way, are we not doing the exact same thing? God's plan hasn't changed. Maybe our perspective might, but His plan doesn't change. So there's the perplexing problem that we have. And I love God, sitting there and He says, it's a rare opportunity for God to step back and say, okay, I'm going to show you. I wish He would do that sometimes. But then at other times I take a deep breath and go, phew, I'm glad He doesn't. Okay? But He did with Habakkuk. He says, you don't think I'm doing anything? I'm going to show you what I'm doing. But as I show you what I'm doing, you're not going to like it. You're not going to like it. So look what he says there. Let's pick up in chapter 1. He says, are you not from everlasting, O Lord, my God, the Holy One, my Holy One? We shall not die. O Lord, you have ordained them as judgment, and you, O rock, have established them for reproof. You are of purer eyes than to see evil, and cannot look at wrong. Why do you idly look at traitors and remain silent when the wicked swallow us up? The man more mighty than he. You make mankind like the fish of the sea, like crawling things that have no ruler. He brings all of them up with a hook, and He drags them out of the net. He gathers them in the dragnet, so he rejoices and is glad. Therefore, he sacrifices to his net and makes offerings to his dragnet, for by them he lives in luxury, and his food is rich. Is he then to keep on emptying his nets and mercilessly killing nations forever? God, how can you take someone more wicked than us to judge us? That's what Habakkuk's saying. And not only are you using them to judge us, you're prospering them in the process. They are just continuing to gain wealth and notoriety and power and prestige. And boy, they're in the lap of luxury. And you're going to allow that to keep going on? I just don't get this. God, I am so perplexed, and it's so profounding to me to see all this take place. It's really interesting. I don't want to get into the politics here. I mean, I could just go off right now and be more direct into our problems here and make it more applicable, but it's also probably not a good thing. Okay? Because I don't want to deal on what we're going through. I want to deal with where we're going. We're going to come out of this one way or the other. We're going to either come out of it here or we're going to come out of it there. But we win no matter. I read the last chapters, folks. We win. We win. Do you know that Jeremiah was a contemporary of Habakkuk? And just read Jeremiah, the weeping prophet. He just cried his heart out. And you know, he had such a love and a commitment and a heart for the nation. And what do? They throw him in a pit to die. I remember once thinking to myself, you know, my wife and I have had a few hard ministries. And I remember once looking at myself and saying, I should write a book. Why does it hurt so much to be a pastor? And then I thought about it. Well, that looks like more self-inflection than reflection. So let's not reflect on that. Let's just reflect on God, because he's always brought me through. He's always made me better. My life, you know, I cannot have a richer life. I look at my kids, man. Puff out that chest a little bit. I'm so proud of them. All of them love the Lord. All of them walk. They walk the walk, and they don't just talk the talk. Their families come first. You know, this is the way I lived my life and did my ministries and still do. God is first. My wife is second. My ministry's third. It has to be that way. Because if I lose my wife, I lose my ministry. If God isn't first in my life, I can minister all I want. It's going to be ineffective. And you know what comes forth? My kids. What? You are a horrible man. No. I raised my kids to move out. It took some of them a little longer than others. But that's what you do. You raise them to be productive parts of society and to be workers within the church. You know, sometimes the strongest people in the church are the ones that you see least of up front. Nothing is more important to a ministry than prayer warriors. And nothing is more encouraging to me as a father to have my children text, Dad, I'm praying for you. People ask me, Pastor Rick, what'd you guys do right? I said, well, I married Patty. That was the first step. You know what? We don't know what we did right, other than try to be consistent to God's word. If it's no today, it should be no tomorrow. It's not maybe, it's no. I live by the fact that this might shock you as well. I mean, I have such a loving, kind, soft-spirited personality. Spare the rod, spoil the child. We have so many problems in the world, we don't see that enough. Think of the anatomy. Can we stop for a moment and just think of the anatomy? There's one place on the human body that God has super padded. Did he not? And if I can be a little more direct here, and if it's offensive to you, well, we can talk about it later, because I won't be offended. I don't want to offend you, but I'm really not sorry for saying it, so we'll get that out of the way real quick. Not only is it super padded, it's already cracked, so you don't have to worry about breaking it. My goodness, folks. I can remember when we started raising our children, Dr. Spock wrote a book, and I remember my Sunday school teacher, Joe Stevens, saying, the only thing that book's good for is smacking my kids. Look, my son's sitting back there, and you can ask him later. I bet in his life I didn't spank him more than 5 or 6 times. But I bet 100, if not 1,000 times, I'd look at him and say, do I need to get the ping pong paddle? You know what Ryan's least favorite sentence was that came out of my mouth? Ryan, would you please pick up the toys? But Dad, I didn't take them out. I didn't ask you if you took them out. I asked you to pick them up. And look at him laughing, because he is. And I understood his frustration. But, folks, we could list off several items. Corporal punishment in the appropriate fashion is just one of them. How about when you do give kid corporal punishment? After it's had a few seconds to set in, call them back. Let them crawl and climb up on your lap and say, I love you, but I surely dislike what you were doing. But I love you. They can't associate the punishment with your acceptance. I believe my children, without reservation, and my grandchildren know that I love them regardless of what's going on. I'm going to move on to the next point. Perplexing problem is that things just seem to be helter-skelter and out of whack and off the chart wrong. But here's a proper perspective. Okay? Well, I moved one sheet too fast. The proper perspective. I've shared most of this. I've caught myself going way ahead again. Those of you that are watching live stream, I'm sorry. Good time to run to the coffee pot. His proper perspective was this. Listen to Habakkuk's prayer. O Lord, I've heard the report of you and your work. O Lord, Do I fear in the midst of the years? Revive it. In the midst of the years, make it known. In wrath, remember mercy. God came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran. His splendor covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise. His brightness was like the light. Rays flashed from his hand, and there he revealed his power. Before him went pestilence, and plague followed at his heels. He stood and measured the earth. He looked and shook the nations. Then the eternal mountains were scattered. The everlasting hills sank low. His where the everlasting was. I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction, and the curtains of the land of Midian did tremble. Was your wrath against the rivers, O Lord? Was your anger against the rivers, or your indignation against the sea? And when you rode on your horses, on your chariot of salvation, you stripped the sheath from your bow, calling for many arrows. And he says, stop for a minute. Selah, stop and contemplate that. You know what Habakkuk finally did? He said, look, I yelled. And I was frustrated. I know you know I was frustrated. And I yelled, what are you doing? Open your eyes! But really, you've opened mine. And I've taken a deep breath. Whew. Right about this time, I'm thinking of a good children's song. Stand up. This is not my notes, but we're going to do it. Stand up. And you got to do the motions. You have permission to put your Bible down for a minute. Then we're going to back up to Habakkuk. You ready? You promise to do the motions. You at home, stand up. Okay? My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty. There's nothing my God is so big, so strong, and so mighty. There's nothing my God cannot do. The mountains are his, the valleys are his, the sky are his handiwork too. My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty. There's nothing my God cannot do. You may be seated for you and me. That's a brief summation of what Habakkuk realizes. That's a brief summation of what Habakkuk realizes. And he's just got the proper perspective. God's in control. I might not like it, but who has known the mind of God, or who hath been his counselor? Nobody. I love it when God answers, by the way, where were you when and he starts making off a list. It's amazing. God just is so amazing. And I rejoice that Habakkuk said, look, it's okay, folks, to be frustrated. It's okay to be perplexed. It's okay to be overwhelmed of the profoundness of the situation. But stop. Wait a minute. Get the right perspective. Get the right perspective. God is in control. To use the vernacular of the day, God is in the house. He is in control of the game. You want to talk about the real GOAT? The greatest of all time? Not Muhammad Ali, not LeBron James, not his name just left me, the golfer who just was in the accident, Tiger Woods. God. He's the greatest of all time. And he's the only one that deserves our praise. And he does that. He just puts things back in order after he uses that which he has chosen to bring things back. Remember earlier we were talking about why things are the way they are in this country? Get the right perspective on it. God's in control of it. There is no fear. The Lord is my strength and my salvation. What do I have to fear that man can do to me? What's the worst thing that any man can do to another man? Not so bad for us. Not so bad for us. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. And so we need to understand those things and keep the right perspective as we go along. Let me read some more out of chapter 3. He goes on to say, the mountains saw you and withered. The raging water swept on, the deep gave forth its voice. It lifted its hands on high. The sun and the moon stood still in their place at the light of your arrows as they sped. At the flash of your glittering spear, you marched through the earth in fury. You threshed the nations in anger. You went out for the salvation of your people, for the salvation of your anointed. You crushed the head of the house of the wicked, laying him bare from thigh to neck. That's some pretty gruesome stuff if you really start thinking about what's being said there. Any of you watch Forged in Fire? It's fun to watch once in a while. But when they hang up that big old pig, and then they take it's not living, okay? Let's make that clear. They're not that cruel. But then they take the blades that these guys made, and they want to see if they'll cut. And they take and slash at that animal. And from stem to stern, it cuts right in half. It's amazing what those knives and swords can do. That's kind of a picture of what's being talked about here. How God is just waylaying the enemies of his people. That's how we need to view the current situation we're in. It looks like they might be winning. They're not. It looks like there's no way out, but there always is. You know, if we would learn to quote that one verse in 1 Corinthians a little better, I think we'd be all right. There's no temptation by the word is periosmos in the Greek, and it's the same word no matter where testing, tempting, or tried. It's translated all three ways in the New Testament. But there's no temptation that has taken you, but such as is common for man. But God is not slack. Oh, no, I'm going to first. I'm going to 1 Peter there. Sorry, but God is what? God is faithful. Okay, you're familiar with the passage. Quote it for me, brother. Yeah, he's not giving you a way out. He's showing you how to get through it. And that's what he's telling Habakkuk. Just calm down. Put your big boy pants on and give it a minute. You're whimpering and whining before it even gets started. That's what he's saying. Now, you know, that's in between the lines. You've got to look real close to see it there, but that's what he's saying. Quit whining. We aren't whiners. We are winners. Thanks be to God who gives us the word is Nike. Did you know that? The word is Nike in the Greek. Thanks be to God who gives us the Nike. gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. It's amazing. The victory is already won. So why do we want to live as if we're defeated when we should be living as the victors we are? Even though it might be hard to see, even though it might be hard to understand, even though others may tell us we're crazy, and in my case, they're probably right, we still need to live from that perspective. Let's read on. You pierced with his own arrows the heads of his warriors. That's something to think about before lunch. Who came like a whirlwind to scatter me, rejoicing as if to destroy the poor in secret. You trampled the sea with your horses, the surging of mighty waters. I hear, and my body trembles. My lips quiver at the sound. Rottenness enters into my bones. My legs tremble beneath me. Yet I will quietly wait for the day of trouble to come upon people who invade us. See, he's given Habakkuk a future look at the end result. And Habakkuk says, okay, I can breathe a little easier. We're all not going to make it through this, but those that don't make it through it are going to be with the Lord. What a great victory. And my God's still on the throne. Let's close this out, okay? This is a quote almost identical to what Jeremiah said. Now, isn't it? I doubt Jeremiah and Habakkuk had time to talk to each other about writing this verse down. So it's a statement like earlier when we were talking about practicing here for all eternity. It's one of those statements. Though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food. The flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God, the Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like the deer's. He makes me tread on my high places. What a great perspective. Now that's praise. That's worship. And you know, let's put it in just everyday language. My life may take a dramatic change. My life will never change its purpose. My life may look overwhelming and defeated to somebody else, but they've not walked that mile in my shoes. And no matter what changes come, no matter how perplexed I get, or profound the circumstances may be, I will praise my God. I will praise him. I may have nothing, but with him I have everything. And that's a perspective we have to take, folks. Now, I want to give you a quick outline. I'm not smart enough to come up with this outline by myself, but it's something I heard from a dear friend and a mentor from afar, and he used to teach at Cedarville, and his name is David Warren. And David actually planted a church in Champion, Ohio. Most of you might not know that. But David Warren used to be the state rep here for the fellowship. And here's his outline for Habakkuk. You ready? What do you say when you pull back on the reins of a horse? Okay, so you'll know the difference. So the first part of the book, he goes, woe, W-O-E. Woe is me. Oh, things are just horrible. Okay? Then he goes on his conversation with God, and he goes, whoa, wait a minute. Are you kidding me? I'm not complaining now. I'm shocked. Whoa, like stop. Then he goes, wow. Wow. So whoa, whoa, wow. That's a great outline. A lot better than mine. That's why I gave it to you at the end, so you'd remember it. And folks, remember this. My God shall supply all. Do you know what all means? All means all, and that's all means. Dr. Paul Tasso used to tell that one all the time. And my God shall supply all my needs according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus. And let's leave with that today as the encouragement we need. While the world falls apart, we're going to hold together. Amen. Father, bless your word. Strengthen us by it and through it. And direct us into what you would have us to do. Father, your word is not shared in a vacuum. It will accomplish that which you have sent it forth to accomplish. May we all begin to live the life that you have for us to your glory, to your honor, and to your praise. In Jesus' name, amen.